Despite the fact that our nation has functioned successfully as a republic and a voting democracy, there are always those that think, well, we can fix the system that ain't broke. This week, a self-appointed ad hoc committee called Advanced Democracy in Maryland, I love the names of these groups, recommended that Montgomery County be allowed to adopt ranked choice voting for local elections in Montgomery County. Mike, in the aftermath of the Democratic primary last summer, I toyed on air with the idea that ranked choice voting might have kept Mark Elrich from being the Democratic nominee for county executive. Is ranked choice voting, where voters are allowed to vote successively until a candidate emerges with over 50% of the vote, a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it depends depends upon the context. I think one of the things in your lead-in, one of the things I've struggled with or learned a lot, I guess, over the last few years, are the number of things that I don't know. And as I've continued to learn and things that I was taught through school of how we've always been and how our country's always been, that there's been a lot more evolution and a lot more evolving than I think I fully appreciated. And so when I step back and I look at the changes that have made, as you look at redistricting that's taken place across the country, and you look at the number of districts we have, especially congressional districts across the country where you have very little competition, and you look at something like ranked, and candidly, given the way that legislatures are currently divided, the likelihood of that changing is pretty slim. Something like ranked choice voting, I think, begins to provide an opportunity to start to get candidates back towards the mainstream as opposed to the fringes of each party. And so I think in that context, it's an interesting idea to think about. When I look at Montgomery County, do I see that as a challenge? Interestingly, and I'm kind of intrigued that you don't seem to be that supportive of it, because I think it might actually start to get the opportunity for more Republican participation, just given the fact that we're so overwhelmingly Democratic, that it gives some other candidates the ability to potentially get in the mix in a way that you couldn't otherwise. And so I think, do I think we need in Montgomery County, of the places that are out there? Probably not. Would it break the status quo a little bit? It might shake things up, and I don't ever think that's necessarily a bad thing. And so, I'm a little bit ambivalent, but I think at this point it's not a bad idea to begin to shake things up a little bit, because I think we're kind of getting more stultifying than we need to be.
Well, I think that's the allure that ranked choice voting. As I said, in the aftermath of the Democratic primary last March, where it was decided again by 60 votes or less, and we had a similar outcome 4 years ago. There is this, idea that, there's an allure to having greater competition. But Mark, opponents say that ranked choice voting is a scheme to disconnect elections from issues and allow candidates with marginal support from the voters to win.
Well, I think there are two basic points I would make against ranked choice voting. First, I think it disenfranchises voters who don't take the time to go through the entire list. Most voters go in, they've got a candidate they like, and that's who they vote for. And under the ranked choice system, it really prioritizes or incentivizes people to have to go through each and every candidate and to basically list them, because of the way the system works of rolling up voters to reach 50%. We have enough issues with participation. Certainly in primaries, we see a huge drop off from the potential voters who participate. It really makes it harder for voters to may not be as engaged to participate. So that would be number one. The other point I think is that it works as a disincentive for candidates to work towards a majority vote. So it basically enables fringe candidates to get their vote and then pass on votes to it. In our system, we have a two-party system, and it incents each of the parties to compete to try and reach a majority. And I think that overall is a system that creates more balance and more of a central, more centrist than would otherwise be the case.
But in a county, and I think Mike struck the tone here, in a county where there's such an overwhelming voter, I guess, registration differential between the parties, wouldn't this give an opportunity for a minority party to win? That's the real question.
Well, that of course assumes that you don't have, you go to nonpartisan elections, and that which raises a whole other set of issues.
Okay. Mike, anything further before we go on to our next topic?
Does it solve the world's problems? It doesn't, but I don't think it's bad to put something on the table for consideration to see if we can continue to refine and improve.
All right. Well said. It's good thought. We'll see where it goes.